Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Sarah Wild, bringing you the voices and stories of jazz from Durham, North Carolina. Gregg, thank you so much for joining Six Count.
Thank you for having me.
And I heard that you know Keenan McKenzie, who's a recent Six Count guest. Will you share about your connection to him?
Yeah, oh, sure. Well, I don't know how long ago it was now, but I was teaching 1 year at UNC Greensboro. You know, I was full-time interim professor, so I taught lessons and I taught jazz combos, and Keenan was in the combo I taught, and he was real young, you know, and I saw the potential right there, and he's gone on to do great.
Yes.
And I get to play with him, you know, once a month in the North Carolina Jazz Repertory Orchestra.
That's right. You're connected in so many different groups, and Keenan recently just successfully surpassed his Kickstarter goal for a recording project that's going to happen at Magnetic Sound Studios. And you also have a show coming up there and a recent recording project to speak about. Is that where you recorded for this most recent work?
Well, it's similar in names, actually. The place where we recorded last was called Manifold.
Okay.
And that's in
local?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, okay.
Yeah, and it's a state-of-the-art facility, you know, way out in the country, and it's beautiful. And so I've done recordings there. But this time I'm going to go to, well, we're not set for the recording date yet, but we are going to do kind of a debut performance there this Friday night, you know, and we're going to play our new music. But I know the owner, his name is Dave Tilley.
Very kind man.
Yeah, and we go back a ways. I don't know if anybody's mentioned him yet, but Rodney Marsh was quite a force in the Triangle in jazz for a long time, and in other music too. He had a music store. He did a lot of repairs, instruments, and he had a spot where you could perform. He had an upstairs. It was called the Upstairs, Marsh Woodwind's Upstairs.
And this was in Durham? Or?
This was in Raleigh.
Raleigh, okay.
And Dave Tilley used to be hanging around there. A lot of people used to hang around because Rodney was such a great guy. And he was in my band. Rodney played in my band, the Gregg Gelb Swing Band, for years. I met him before that in a group called Group Sax. He was the saxophonist in there. And I got involved with that group. So we played together in that group. And then when I started the swing band, he was the saxophonist in it. But anyway, Dave Tilley and lots of people used to hang around Marsh Woodwinds.
And did that unfortunately close?
It did. He passed away a little bit over a year ago now. And so, yeah.
But it sounds like Dave is wanting to continue some of that legacy with the great work he's been doing at the studio. It seems
that way. He's taken that vibe, and I like the way Dave, he's always been nice, but I like the idea of him opening up his place for performances. I think that's really cool. And he's got a great looking studio.
And you'll be playing with Ramon Ortiz on drum kit and percussion, Beverly Botsford on congas and percussion, Steve Anderson on piano, and Andy Kleindienst on bass. And you'll be playing some original tunes as well. Can you share more about the music that you'll be debuting there and what listeners might be able to expect from the next few months?
You know, we've been playing with this group, La Fiesta Latin Jazz Quintet. I'd say we've been together for over 10 years. And it's amazing that we've kind of played the same music for 10 years. We have a pretty set program because we do a lot of school shows. We play for the Wake County Public Schools a lot. And so we've been doing the same tunes, and there's no problem. You know, we love the tunes. We still put as much energy into them as we always did. But I was just like, well, how about, you know, we try some new stuff. So I put it upon myself to write these 6 new tunes, which I call the Latin Jazz Dance Suite. And it's just real simple stuff. I mean, you know, one's a mambo, because, you know, we mix it up when we do our shows. We do mambo, cha-cha, bolero, salsa, merengue, and there's one other. There's 6 parts, but they're all standard Latin rhythms, that people can dance to. And we get, whenever we've played shows, there's always some people that want to get up and dance. And then, I think we felt a little limited because we're really a jazz group too. We love to, improvise and stuff. But no, these are real standard dance beats.
And has your preference been some of those smaller intimate spaces for more of a listening room experience? Or do you like to be out with dancers and maybe not the club environment, but at a bar with a dance floor?
Well, ideally, it's like, I think our most favorite venues are concerts, for a few hundred people or so, where we really have everybody's attention. And if people are not dancing, that's fine. If some people get up and dance on the outskirts, that's just an ideal environment if it's got everything, good sound. And if we get into a more intimate space, that's great too, as long as, and we haven't ever really just done a straight out dance before, so I'm hoping that this leads us towards more opportunities for us to be hired as the dance band. But I think we've got a nice mix. We've got people who like to listen and people who just like to get up and dance on some tunes.
And do you have a personal connection to the music, or what's your background with Latin styles?
Yeah, well, that started in that group I was with, Group Sax, when I moved to Raleigh in '79. There was a club called the Cafe Deja Vu. And it was run by and owned by Peter Ingram, who was a drummer, but he had a group called Group Sax. And, it took me a year or two to start getting involved with the scene, but that's where, if the scene was not that big. I know from listening to your show, it's like, God, it's so big now. There's so many people, but back then, seemed like there was a core group. Peter had, Group Sax, so it had Rodney Marsh in it, Ray Codrington, Beverly Botsford was in it.
Okay.
Eddie Polantonio was in it, and Salim Malik. He's from Durham. So anyway, I started getting involved with that group, and they played some Latin pieces because Ray Codrington wrote music for the group. And Ray Codrington is a very famous trumpet player. He had played up in D.C. He was on Eddie Harris's famous album, Freedom Jazz Dance. So he was really a well-known trumpet player, and he was living in Fayetteville and coming up to Raleigh and playing in this group. So I got involved with them. And so there were some original Latin tunes, and that's what started it.
And you've also spanned different genres by getting into historic swing and New Orleans. You've got several different groups. Mm-hmm. Has some of those early involvements been lasting as you've continued through today, or where are you leaning towards now?
After Group Sax, I met Paul Montgomery, Uncle Paul, great piano player in Raleigh. He's blind, pianist. And I'd go out and hear him play at clubs. He was playing with Carol Sloan, another famous vocalist who had really a nationally known vocalist who had ended up being in the Triangle. But she and Paul used to play together. And I'd go out and listen to him and sometimes sit in. And he's a marvelous swing player. He sounded like Teddy Wilson, Mel Powell, all the greats. So he was highly regarded piano player. I just loved hearing him. So I started playing with him. I was like, geez. And then I met his daughter, who is now my wife.
Is this Kathy?
Kathy, yeah. Great singer. And I was like, well, God, maybe I always wanted to have my touch on arrangement. I wanted to do arranging. So I started writing arrangements for Paul in the band and Kathy, and it became the Gregg Gelb Swing Band. So that swing kept that going for a long time. And
then you've had the Second Line Stompers, which is played at Sharp 9 and other places.
Sure. Yeah. The Second Line Stompers started just because, if you're a jazz player, the history is so rich and deep, and you can't help but wanting to know what came before us. Mm-hmm. So then you start checking it out. That's not who I originally checked out. I was checking out Miles Davis and John Coltrane. That was my first inspiration. But, as you get deeper into the music, you go back further in time, and Louis Armstrong and Dixieland, and the whole idea of New Orleans jazz, I mean, is where, there's more improvisation and it's free. The clarinet's doing his own thing. And I loved playing clarinet too. So that's the other thing. I mean, primarily I'm a tenor saxophonist, but, the clarinet is something I've always played and I loved. And so that's just a great vehicle for clarinet work, the New Orleans style. And I've kept that going. I mean, I've got other things I do too with music. I don't know if you know this, but I have a classical degree on saxophone also.
Oh, very neat. I know you played in the symphony.
Yeah, I get to play with the North Carolina Symphony quite a bit. I've done some really great pieces with them. Rachmaninoff, for instance, has written this beautiful piece called Symphonic Dances. And it's not a hard solo, but you're the only one playing with the whole symphony. It's a beautiful piece. So I've had a lot of pieces like that. So, the La Fiesta Latin Jazz is definitely Latin. That's a style in itself, what we call more straight rhythm time. Swing, of course, has got that, swing feel. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to actually. It's more learned orally. It's hard to teach it, but it definitely has a different feel to it. Swing. It's based. Some people say based on a triplet is one way to think of it. Whereas Latin is straight up and down. Classical is straight up and down. So I don't have one. I don't prefer one over another. I mean, I like them all.
And you've taught extensively too, and was curious in your private sessions or with the different universities and institutions you've worked with, if there is a genre that you prefer to teach and whether that's the same as what you personally just prefer to play.
What I like to teach is big band. The music of Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Benny Goodman. I've got a great youth band called the Triangle Youth Jazz Ensemble.
And congratulations on placing for the 7th time in the Essentially Ellington High School Jazz Competition and Festival hosted by Lincoln Center.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a competition nationwide. Everybody wants to be the best and do the best they can. And the other schools, are full-time band programs, with lots of support in their communities. And you see the same bands coming every year because they do have strong community support and strong culture for playing big band music. But I would say the driving force behind it all is Duke Ellington's music. It's because of Duke Ellington. And Wynton Marsalis, he knew that. I mean, students playing, it's possible to really do a good job of recreating Duke Ellington's music. It's just such great music. And I would say that's the reason that we keep going. And I love teaching it. I just love teaching it. And the students respond to it. And I'm fortunate I have students that can play it.
Do you have any favorite Ellington tunes?
Oh, wow. That diminuendo and crescendo and blue. It's the one that's famous because in the middle of it, Paul Gonsalves, his great tenor saxophonist, takes 27 blues choruses. And it was at a time, I think it's 1958 Newport Jazz Festival. And, in the late 50s, it was hard to keep big bands going. So even Duke was struggling to stay.
Just in terms of the popularity of different, smooth jazz
rock
coming in.
Rock had come in, and female and male singers had all come into, so it was hard to just keep an instrumental band going. And, even Count Basie had reduced his band to about an 8-piece group. You had a few bands that were still doing okay, but it was nothing like during the swing era. So Duke was having a hard time too, but it was that's where he said he was born. I don't know if he said born again, but his band came back because of that moment at Newport Jazz Festival when Paul Gonsalves just kept playing and playing and the crowd started just going wild. But that's the music that Duke wrote is it just takes you to a new place. I mean, it's so powerful. So I would say that's one of my favorites.
And as an arranger and composer yourself, where do you get your inspiration from? And are there any current works you'd like to speak about in addition to the ones you've been doing for the La Fiesta Jazz Quintet?
There's so many great arrangers. The people that wrote for Benny Goodman, Fletcher Henderson, for instance, the people that wrote for Count Basie, Frank Foster, Buck Clayton, all those great arrangers. Duke, Billy Strayhorn, of course, right with Duke.
Who has a North Carolina connection.
Right. There's his grandmother lived in Hillsboro. And so he spent, I think, some summers with her. Oh, there's a lot of great North Carolina connections. My first hero was John Coltrane. He only lives 60 miles from where I live, which is where he lived in Hamlet. That's where he was born. So I'm like, how did I end up in North Carolina living that close to where John Coltrane lived? But the arranging thing, you look at all the big bands. There were so many great big band arrangers. I don't know. It's just always appealed to me and learning how to do it. I've been working at it forever. I'm working on a piece right now. As a matter of fact, I took the fifth movement of La Fiesta, the Latin Jazz suite. It's called the Bolero, Part 5. So I've turned that into a big band, and I think it's going to be ready for the North Carolina Jazz Repertory Orchestra performance this Tuesday.
Going back to your family, you've also played with Christopher Gelb on drums with your 2016 album called Road Trip, as well as with Thomas Linger and Charlton Provatas on bass.
Yeah. Well, my son, of course, at 1 year old, or he's not even 1 year old. He's already coming out to shows with me and Kathy. So he was totally exposed to it, and his grandfather, of course, Paul Montgomery. So Chris, he couldn't help but become a musician, the poor kid.
Like father, like son.
Yeah, and I never pushed him. I said, well, Chris, why don't you be a trumpet player? Because I've known, I've seen people play, and it seems like that's the easiest thing to maintain. I don't know everything about it, but you think you got a couple of mouthpieces and a trumpet, and you're all set. If you're a saxophonist or clarinetist, you got reed problems every day. Okay. But he didn't get too turned on to it. He got turned on to the drums. And he's a good guitar player too, but he's now got 10 drum sets. He's got them spread out all over the country because he lives in Nashville now.
Is he doing jazz? Or?
Yeah, he's doing jazz and country.
Great. Okay, Nashville would make sense for that.
Yeah, and rock. That's the thing about, he was in New York for a long time. He was just doing jazz, and you kind of get stuck into doing one thing in New York because, I don't know, he couldn't branch out as much as he wanted to. But he feels much better in Nashville. But anyway, when he was around, he went to the School of the Arts in high school. Then he went to UNCG, so he was around, and he's still young, and I used him all the time. But those are his colleagues or classmates, Thomas Linger, who's now really doing well in New York, and Charlton is still in Greensboro. But, I used to love that group. With Chris on drums, oh man, it was great.
Must be so gratifying to see your son and his friends also flourish in many different places.
There's a lot of young people that are doing well in jazz. I thought it was the hardest way to make a living. I seemed like I had to struggle. Taught a lot and practiced all the time and gigged wherever I could. And I'm like, who else wants to get into this type of life? But there's a lot of people that are doing well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from being here since 1979, I'm sure you've seen the triangle scene just grow in so many different ways. What do you think helps explain that? Is it just by sheer population size and knowing that we're attracting more in tech, and which is usually not a symbiotic relationship with the arts, to say the least?
I know.
So why do you think that is, or what other changes have you noticed?
Well, the thing about tech, of course, there is that level of intellect. They're going to appreciate. Jazz is not. It needs a good listener and a smart listener, I think. Anybody can get attracted to it. But
it's a sophisticated.
Yeah, there you go. That's
audience.
the word I was looking for. And so the tech, that gives us that. And lots of students are learning. It's amazing how many people are learning, about it. How many students have I had over these, years? Holy mackerel, tons of them. Mm-hmm. But it's you can't really explain it in terms of opportunity. That there's hardly any places to play. There's not enough jazz clubs for as many people that play.
I do feel like beyond the Sharp 9 Gallery in Durham, there's not many places like that, which makes for a good audience at the Sharp 9. But to your point of wanting more of those spaces and across the different pockets in the triangle in Raleigh and Carborough, Chapel Hill, and otherwise.
You can still play in restaurants, probably. I certainly did it and I think that's what the younger people are doing now. They're finding places to play. And you do that. I've done that, and I still like doing it occasionally, some bars, Bond Brothers or the Clayton Revival. I mean, if you couldn't play what you want to play, then forget it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've done so many places where they're telling you, "Oh, keep it down, boys." And I hate that. We hate that. But what can you do? You got to find the happy medium. If you don't keep it down, they're not going to rehire you. So you find a way to get through it. But no, I mean, I don't know what we're going to do about finding jazz clubs. It takes quite an investment. Somebody's going to have to do it. And Dave has done a great job because he's involved in education. He knows what he's doing with education to keep it going. And people listen when you play. I mean, that's great.
So I'm hearing you say there is the audience for it, but not as many venues. And for those venues to happen, you need a significant amount of resources, which, if they are there, have not been proportioned for those spaces. Yeah.
I mean, the things that are successful, you can see anybody that brings in a big name in one of the universities, when they bring in a big name, I mean, those things are usually sold out. Mm-hmm. There's an audience for it.
And you've toured a good deal yourself from New York City with the ensemble, but then also with the Johnson City Jazz Festival. So is that how you've made up the difference, if you will, of finding opportunities in your touring?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of picking and choosing, the quality events. I'm fortunate that Christian Tambor was just one of your guests. Yes. Right. And he's doing a great job with finding quality and just, working towards the quality that jazz musicians really want, where you have a good room and you have a good audience. So I'm going to play a couple of concerts with him in October. I'm going to play he's going to play a Lionel Hampton show, and I'm going to be playing the Benny Goodman part. We used to play a lot more. I used to play a whole lot more. Like I said, I was playing all the restaurants, and C. Grace was going, used to play there. Well, that was like for 10 years. I played there like two times a month.
A pandemic tragedy, it seemed.
That did it. Her in for sure. She couldn't find people to work. But, when things were things really picked up pretty quick once it stopped.
Mm-hmm. When we were emerging from the pandemic.
We emerged, we were in our houses for 2 years, God, wasn't that horrible?
In which you also produced the Pandemic Suite, which was wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing one of the CDs with us.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I did. I wrote that Pandemic Suite.
I saw even just the cover was indicative of the crisis that we were in.
I know, I had my friend put the virus on the cover. And I tried to write the music, as a story, we're in quarantine, what are we all doing? We're dancing, all by ourselves. So it was a 2-year practice period.
I think jazz musicians necessarily have to be adaptable, as we've seen jazz evolve so much throughout the years, but just by being a musician and finding where you get gigs, whether it's, online platforms or otherwise, or with the music itself and how that can be more reflective of the times. Are there other things that you'd want to share with the Six Count community about where they can find you in the year ahead, or the kinds of focus areas that you'll be dedicating your time to?
Yeah, well, one thing I wish is that people would come out and hear that Triangle Youth Jazz Ensemble. I get the feeling sometimes it's still just supported by the parents of the students, but like I said, we're a national award-winning group, and they're playing such great music, by, Duke Ellington or Count Basie, Mary Lou Williams, Benny Carter, all this great music from the swing era. I mean, we could do a dance easy, I think we're going to do a swing dance next year.
Through the Triangle Swing Dance Society, or another one?
I don't think we're going to go. We're probably going to do our own, but we could easily play for the Triangle Swing Dance Society.
Okay, well, there's the plug out there if you're...
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I should have mentioned about this area. I mean, you weren't here at the beginning, but in the early 90s, that's when it started, the Triangle Swing Dance Society. And my band, the Gregg Gelb Swing Band, was regularly one of the bands.
Oh, great. And
that played.
Were there a lot of dancers then?
Oh, too? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Richard Badu was there.
Oh, yes.
He was there from the start.
Had many great dances with him.
Yeah. And Yeah, but he's been there from the start too. But my band used to play all the time for the group, and now they've got tons of bands to choose from. Playing for dancers is great, so we can do that. We're going to have another big concert. I think it's November 11th when we're going to bring in somebody from Jazz at Lincoln Center. Her name is Alexa Tarantino.
Excellent.
She's going to be our guest. We're going to do that concert. I'm going to be doing those concerts with Christian. I have a community band I didn't talk about yet. It's called the Heart of Carolina Jazz Orchestra.
When did you found that?
Oh, I did that back in 1990. I was the visiting artist at Central Carolina Community College. That's another cool thing. Oh, that visiting artist program was incredible. I don't know if you know anything about it, but when I first came down here, I taught for 8 years in the public schools, but then I heard about this visiting artist program, and every community college in the state had a visiting artist. For this program went on for about 20 years, and you were employed full time, and all you needed to do was play your art and expose the community to your art. So for 4 years, I was a jazz artist, full time, college pay to just play and write and expose the community to jazz. So that's when I started the Heart of Carolina Community. It's kept going, and we've regularly put on guest artist concerts, and most of them are in Sanford at the Temple Theater.
Where you currently live and work?
Yeah. Well, I've lived down there because when we came here, we lived in Raleigh. And it was like, God, there was so much nice country in North Carolina. Wouldn't it be nice to get out into the country? And so when these college jobs came up, Sanford is not too far. So we got a place out in the country.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And you've also conducted different small groups. And so is that still something that you're working on now?
Well, the small group that I've got right now, I like. It's just because it's looser. You play tunes. I don't get to play tunes as much as when I used to do all the restaurant and bars. I used to play the Great American Songbook. There's so many tunes, and I know so many from my years of playing, but I don't get a chance to play it anymore. So yeah, I've got a good small group now. Grant Osborne on organ. He's really fun to play with. And so I think you've kind of covered all the stuff I'm doing.
That's the goal. So.
It keeps you busy, right? It keeps me busy. And especially the writing stuff, that's a few hours every day.
It takes such discipline, and it's a activity that requires solitude. And so I'm sure that comes with the challenge too, and creativity. And so you can't just squeeze it in when you're doing administrative or other types of tasks to do the business of jazz.
Oh, the business of jazz. Yeah, I tell you. I did it for so long, making all the phone calls and sending out the promo. And it did work, it builds up, it works. And then you get to a point where, well, you're getting called without having to do much. Now that was like, that was great. So I could just take the calls and then fill the needs. But, now I got to start hustling again.
Why is that? Just for the changing landscape of different, there's gig salad, there's wedding industry websites. Is that part of it?
I'm on those things. I'm on Gig Salad. You get a few calls. I think what's happened, there's, if you think I've been in the music business now for 50 years, you've got students, the ones that you help, they're all in the music business now. They're all trying to find work. So I've got 2 generations behind me now that have come up, and they're all looking and hustling. They've got the same energy that I used to have, and so I would say there's a lot more competition.
Which has some benefits, but in terms of just getting the gigs, that could, I'm sure, present a challenge.
Yeah, it's challenging. You've got to spend the time, business-wise, finding work, But then you've got to find the time to keep working on your art. And writing for me helps me with my art, you still got, but I still have to practice. I'm still practicing 2 or 3 hours a day, writing 2 or 3 hours a day, teaching,
That's a full day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's always full. And then you got to keep the band together. So you got to make sure that the band's all going to be in the right spot at the right time and on time. And, Yeah, all that stuff keeps me busy. So there really is not enough time or inspiration for me to be hustling up gigs anymore. So maybe that's another reason why it's slowing down a little bit.
No, I mean, it certainly doesn't seem like you're slowing down at all from this side.
Yeah.
On maybe a lower day where it's like, gosh, I've got to do all of these different things. What is it that reminds you this is why I do what I do?
Oh, that's a good question. All I have to do is just hear something great, and I'm like, oh gosh, so-and-so is such a great player, and they came out with this great solo, or somebody wrote this beautiful arrangement, or it could be jazz or classical, and it's just, I'm just inspired, to say, well, this is what I'm doing, and I just want to keep getting better at it, and I'm also committed to maintaining where I'm at. So even if I'm not inspired, I'm always like staying in shape,
I feel that way with dance too. It's like, I just got to maintain flexibility and stamina. And even if I'm not, experiencing this fount of creativity all the time.
Exactly. And that, you still feel good from it's like exercising. Yeah. I mean, I still feel good after a practice session, even if I haven't done anything creative, it just goes back to the discipline I had when I was in sports, played sports all through high school. I started playing in college too. And, but it was just that routine. I mean, a daily routine, and I've kept that going in music, and I'm glad I do, keeps you out of trouble, and keeps your mind going and everything.
As my dad says, for why he would run every single day is just, I'm running from death. I'm just doing what I can to not be closer to dying. I'm living. And I think maybe that's a little morbid, but with jazz too, it's like you're doing this for life. You're choosing to be disciplined because discipline enables creativity. Because it is a rare thing, I think, to just wake up and be amazing all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those creative moments, I think you don't get them that much. I don't know what it would be like to be a touring musician who was playing nightly. Maybe they're inspired every night. I don't know, but it would seem like it would be hard to be inspired every night to come up with something really great. But it's just that some of the great musicians who are touring regularly and playing at all the national clubs, international clubs, and if they're in the environment, which I don't get all the time, but you get into some environment where your band is just cooking and you're cooking and you're not even, it's just the moment is so strong that things happen during those moments. You come up with new things or you just feel so free. That's probably another one of those inspirations. It's just like you're just wanting to get those feelings again. I've reached those moments with La Fiesta sometimes where the band's energy is just like so great. So when we were talking about being in shape, I don't know, this probably has nothing to do with the music interview, but we're talking about trying to fight off death, right? Isn't that what your dad did?
Right.
Well, do you know who Pele was? He was that great soccer player, like world famous soccer player. I think it was him who said he stayed in such perfect shape. And everything he was always working out to stay in time. He said, I'm just trying to fight off every illness there is in the world. And, and I never thought of it that way, but.
Yeah. Maybe I'm hoping I'm not botching my father's words about, because it wasn't exactly fear driven, but just, I think we have choices to move in healthy or less healthy directions. And so for him, it's like, let's do what we can to not move backwards.
Yeah, no, I strongly believe in that. And I've still got a long way to go in music, so I'm trying to stay as healthy as I can because, the ideas are going to keep coming if I just keep working at this stuff. My arrangements are better, and I've been working at them now for 50 years, but gosh, if I'm not feeling good, I'm not going to be able to do it. So I'm trying to, stay as healthy as I can on this stuff. And, I've also, I've lost a ton of friends who I've played with, and, it's not because of anything, but some of them, didn't take care of himself. I hate to see that, And everybody should stay healthy so we can keep playing and dancing.
Important to stay on top of your craft. Gregg, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Anything else you'd like to add, or where people can find your music?
Yeah, well, I'm just hoping that these CDs, the Pandemic Jazz Suite and this new one, the Latin Jazz Dance Suite, I'm hoping that I'll have that out around the holidays.
Oh,
and I think I'm going to put the two together, because the Pandemic Suite is kind of short and this Latin Dance Suite is 6 tunes. So I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe I'll just put them together, And I haven't done the traditional Spotify thing, Amazon.com, because, I've kind of steered away from, because I'm old fashioned. I used to go to record stores, right? We used to going and buying jazz records. Like if somebody said, "Oh man, did you hear that Ben Webster record?" And I'm like, "No, man, I'm going to have to go out and get it." And it was such a big deal to go out and get a record at a record store. I mean, we've got probably 5,000 records still at our house. But now it's so easy. People just get them for free on YouTube. And so stupid me, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sell my CDs. And not many people have bought them. So, because there's no record stores for it. But anyway, I'm going to hold on to it this next one and try to keep selling them, at the stage or whatever.
I think part of it is maybe the education piece of it's not just, well, of course you might be able to find music on Spotify, but it's about supporting this music, because we know that Spotify doesn't support artists in the same kind of direct cash is going to Spotify and going to the artist. That's not how it seems to work from what I've heard. So I think when hearing about other musicians talk about it, it's like, this is a tangible way you can actually support the music that you listen to, realizing that we have not always lived in this world where everything is streamable instantly and for free, when it was not free to create that music.
Oh, it's not free to create it.
Yeah.
It's not. You have to pay, the people, the recording studios, and then the record company. The manufacturers. Yeah. I've always kind of broken even, but that's also, you get a grant or something to help you. But, I still feel it's something like I made, and just having something physical in my hand, because my mother was a painter, so she'd sell paintings, and so I like the idea of having a CD I can sell instead of it being electronic. I don't know. There's still something weird about that.
I like it too. I've had, just from 6 Count, a small collection growing, and thanks to you, I've added your repertoire in it. But being able to, handle them and see the names on the back, and it's just a different, less transactional experience. It's in your house. So I definitely appreciate the maybe old fashioned, if that's how you described it. But.
Yeah. I can see that it works, somebody's famous, like a big name, and they get 1 million hits or something. They're going to make some money. But I don't know. I'm kind of just having a little store of my own. I kind of like that idea too.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate how you do things the way you want to do them, and how you are very multidimensional, and how you apply your time in teaching and composing and arranging and your own music and bands. So thanks so much for sharing about it today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to 6 Count. I'm Zara Wild. You can let us know what you thought of the episode or recommend a guest by emailing us at 6countpodcast@gmail.com, or by finding us on Twitter or Instagram at 6countpodcast. If you'd like to support our work in telling the story of jazz in Durham, you can make a gift to the show by following the link in our episode description. Thanks for listening.